Sean, invite you to come.
Thank you. I want to thank you, first of all, for letting me be here because my faith, I'm not sure, is as strong as many in this congregation, and I look to them for leadership, a little guidance, because I'm on that path, and that's the direction I'm headed. But I have some questions. My parents weren't particularly religious when I was being brought up, and I didn't go to church. And some of you may know that several years ago I lost my daughter. And at that point, I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to do. I wandered down the block to the church that was near me, that was Bethel on Burbank, and it was lovely. The sanctuary was amazing. The pastor was great. The people were great. They continue to be great. I keep coming back Sundays, and I love it. It's a big part of my life now. Where does the faith fit in there? Well, because of Sammy, I have some problems. If there's a God to whom we can pray and hope for answers, and they don't happen, for me, I'm not sure how that looks different than random. And I need it to be more than random to keep me going. And I discovered something recently which really helps lead me down that path. Okay, enough of the intro. I guess the other part of me is I love science. I love physics and math. When I started college, I thought I was going to be a physics major. I went to a really good college. I went to the first day of class. Within 5 minutes, I looked around and said, I'm in the wrong class. And I ended up in economics, which was pretty math heavy, but at least it was a little more for me. So there are some scientific explanations for the existence of God. There are many, actually. And this particular one speaks to me. But first, for instance, an easy one is the idea of entropy. That things go from an ordered state to a less ordered state, and it's a one-way direction. So, for instance, you can't put toothpaste back in a tube, right? It goes one direction. So everything in life kind of follows that rule of entropy. A little bit, physics, a little bit after the Big Bang, it was about as entropous as could be. And since then, things have gotten more ordered. How does that happen? That doesn't make any sense at all. But there's one example of how one physical or mathematical description can kind of lead you to, well, yeah, something's a little different than what physics and math explain. What really hit me, my first day in college in freshman economics, we were given this article, which kind of changed my life. It influences me to this day. It's a silly little article about coincidence, really. It was the following. You take a trip to Europe. You visit Vienna. Oh my goodness, you go to a coffee shop in the morning. My goodness, there's your good buddy Bill sitting at the table. What an incredible thing. What a coincidence. And you and Bill both say, this is unbelievable. What are the odds? Well, like Big Bang Theory, I'd like to say, I'd like to do the math. And so you can kind of figure this out. You can put up a board with 1,000 parameters, likelihood that you go on a vacation, likelihood you would go to Vienna. Do you like coffee? Would you go in the summer? You make these same assumptions about Bill, and after 1,000 parameters, you can come up with some infinitesimally small number which says, here's the chance you would meet Bill. Okay, that's where math kind of works. It goes through the parameters and gives you a conclusion. You can change some of these things. For instance, when you saw Bill, you weren't thinking right before that, what if I see Bill? You weren't thinking anything. You just saw someone you knew. So really, Bill represents a category of people you know. So some of these variables move around, but still the idea is the chance is really, really small that you're going to meet Bill. Okay, let's move on to a different piece of probability. Right there's a little piece of math. Yeah, you could meet Bill. I think we all agree. Yeah, there's a slight chance I'd see someone I know. Let's change it. Now you get up one morning, you don't tell anybody, you go to the airport, you buy a ticket and fly to Tunisia. You rent a camel, you get provisions, you hike with your camel 2 weeks out into the Sahara Desert. You pick a place, you spend 5 minutes there, and then you turn around and go home. What are the chances you'll see Bill at that spot during those 5 minutes? That feels different, doesn't it? So if you run through the math, just as we did in Vienna, you run through the math, you'll get a mathematician who will come up with a number. And actually it'll be ridiculously small, but there'll be a number. But if you think about it, and when I think about it, that's not right. The answer is 0. It doesn't matter how many times you get up, often to infinity, you will never see Bill there. Bill will likely never go. And if he does, he won't go at the same time you do. So the answer is really 0. So there are 2 examples of probability. One where the math works, and one where it really doesn't. Some other explanation would have to come about. So right there, math fails us. So why do I talk about the Sahara Desert? In physics, for this world to exist, planets, galaxies, this congregation, my love for Christy, these are all unbelievable things. And what are the chances that if you believe in the Big Bang occurred and resulted in this? What are the chances of that? Well, it's kind of similar to finding Bill in the Sahara. There are 25 physics constants which describe, kind of motivate this world. Pi, some of you know I have a love for pi. See the ones I have down here, like the speed of light, the Newtonian gravity constant, the mass of an electron, spin rates of molecules. There are 25 of these numbers that describe and support this world, and most of them go out dozens of decimals. The pi goes out for infinity. So those 25 have to be exactly what they are, or none of this would exist. You move one of those numbers and one of those 25 constants, and what we have is just swirling black holes. We don't have this. In my head, that's kind of the same as meeting Bill, because physicists have decided that these constants weren't created by physical nature. They just are what they are. They could be anything, and they just happen to combine to create this. That's incredible. If any of you know Richard Feynman, one of the brilliant physicists of this century, and probably the best explainer of physics ever, he described this problem as one of the greatest damn mysteries of physics. And it's so true. Now, what some people will do is use the idea of infinite to explain this, that if you do anything out to infinity, every possible conclusion will happen. But even there are different ideas of what is infinite. This is my favorite one. I just read this article recently, which perfectly dovetails here. You know about the 40 monkeys, the 40 typewriters, and can come up with the works of Shakespeare. You put 40 monkeys in a room with 40 typewriters. At some point, down to infinity, they will actually type out the works of Shakespeare. This is an old one, and turns out it's not true. Monkeys are not nearly as literary as we give them credit. And that's because infinite, in this case, requires time. So there are 2 kinds of infinite. Pi has an infinite number of numbers. But it doesn't take any time. It just is what it is. This example takes time. The article I read had 200,000 chimpanzees, which is the known world population of chimpanzees, by the way. You put them all in a room with typewriters, and if they hit one letter every second, they will not even get one paragraph done by the time the Earth ends. Sobering thought, but so infinity, when it comes to time, isn't real because it's going to end 1/2 to 2 billion years from now. None of this will be here. So the idea of infinite, those poor monkeys, they're all gone, and they never got it done. So that couldn't happen. So all of these things, I'm sure I'm following myself here. The Earth would end. They wouldn't have time to finish one page. You also wouldn't have enough years to meet Bill in the Sahara. So even if you thought of an infinite number of times, and I think it's 0, it's not even infinite, because the world will end, and infinity will not really have meaning at that point. This is why, if you've heard in physics about the multiverse, the reason they have come up with this is because of this, because some people want to hang on to infinity as the answer. And so the only way that could be is if there are an infinity number of universes, and just sort of by definition, okay, it's going to be taken care of in the infinite. But as I've just said here, infinity has different meanings, and I don't think it applies here. So if you can't explain Bill in the Sahara or these 25 constants by math, is there a better way to look at it? That's tough. So we have to think about causation. Is there a different way to think about causation? We all learned Western science, A leads to B leads to C. But there's another way. For instance, I think this is appropriate considering Jesus' vocation. How is a table made? How do we make a table? What causes a table? Well, one way is woodworker gets tools and wood and puts it together, and A leads to B leads to C. He's doing this, and there's a table. Well, there's another way to look at it. What causes a table? A guy didn't do this randomly. There was a need for a table. There was a desire. There was a direction. Something, some intelligence said, I want a table. And because this, I want things off the floor, whatever. So that also leads to the table. Two different ways of looking at causation. So one is a normal ABC causation. Another one is intended. So what happens here is, this means that the usual scientific analysis proceeds by explaining how the laws of nature cause phenomena is backwards. What it looks like here is that the intended result is the cause, and some intelligence put that into place, because otherwise none of this really makes any sense. Intelligence is defined as the ability to pick out one possibility from among many for the purpose of producing an intended goal. And that's exactly this. Of the infinity possibilities, we have these 25 constants. We met Bill in the Sahara Desert. How do those things happen? In this light, the selection of the constants that results in a universe that is greater than the sum of its parts, which is what I see here, is a direct indication of an intelligent cause. What is that? I suppose you could posit different things, but it seems to me the earth, this church, this congregation, my love for Christy, it was all intended. And God is at the very least for me an unbelievable architect and has set this stage. And so I pretty much accept at this point, because of the math, because of the physics, that God is at the least a creator and created this. And to the extent there's more, I'm open, Christy and I will continue to talk. We'll continue to talk here in this congregation, and I thank you very much.